Oh, welcome into the first episode of Silver Synopsis. Well, we're going to be taking a look at every team in Major League Soccer. There's a lot of them. We can't keep up. We need help from you guys, the community, anybody involved. And guess what? Since it's the first one, we're gonna work through things, and the best way to do it is Orlando City, the team we all love, know the most. As
All?
always, I got Chris, the MLS card guy, to come rain on our parades, but we have a
Yes.
special guest, Mike MCG 1848, commonly found in the Major League. So rare, the best place to go for all your MLS needs and wants. Mike, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Looking forward to talking about the best, and the most massive club in Major League Soccer.
Oh, I didn't know we were talking about DC this episode. This is cool.
Okay,
I love that. All right.
Orlando City is massive, and we're going to get into it straight Orlando City, straight from the go. But first, for those who don't know Mike, and we all know Mike, obviously, we're all best friends. We all hang out all the time. Mike, how long have you been on Sorare? And tell me about your gallery. Where are you sitting? What do you prioritize? And how do you have fun on this Sorare thing that we love?
So I think overall I've been on since probably April of 21. So I was part of the Gary V Boomers.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, exactly. Have a good time. I think obviously I've prioritized a lot of the Orlando City and a lot of America guys. Looking forward to some Liga MX coming back, and then whatever I can do to try and expand some of my horizons and learn some new leagues and everything. So picked up a nasty Napoli habit from Sorare, which was great last year and not so great this year. So,
hey, was it those were the Chucky Lozano days, weren't they?
Yeah,
that was probably early enough. So where, as far as like Sorare, like scarcity wise, are you in rare, super rares? Like where are you commonly found at?
Yeah, I would say mainly rares. I dabble in super rare a little bit, so kind of that rare pro, rare plus, whatever we're calling that these days. And then for the guys that I can't necessarily afford in rare, I do have a pretty good amount of limited. So that's where I have some of the Napoli collection and some of those guys.
All right, there we go. See, we got some big players over here. We're some of us little limited minnows over here. We're hanging out, but it's all the same, and we love Orlando City. My gallery is basically Orlando City, like yours is, and there are some good, some bad. Chris, do you have any Orlando City players?
Oh, of course. I'm like one of the biggest Facundo fans in the world. I'm pretty sure I bought an extra Facundo for like a giveaway at one point. And then we didn't end up using it, and I've just had 2 Facundos in my gallery ever since.
Oh, how convenient!
It's just weird that just ended up that way. It's super weird.
So I love that you brought up Facundo Torres, right? Because as we know, Facundo Torres, we thought he was going to leave. Arsenal wanted him, baby, but they didn't get him because you know what? We have signed him again for what feels like the third time, extended him again. Now we have him through 26 with an option for 27 and 28. So right now it's the off season. We know we got things coming. We have an open DP slot. Mike, let me take it to you first because everything kind of ran on what Facundo was going to do, right? Whether he was going to leave and like how the team was going to be built after that. Now that he's staying, what happens now? What do we have to look forward to?
It's the loaded question. As if anybody can understand Oscar Pereira and read the tea leaves, let me know. So a lot's been made about the switch. So he's changed jersey numbers from 17 to number 10. So that's come with a lot of speculation that maybe he slides inside, plays that a center attack and mid role. And a lot of it, so you're just kind of waiting, I think, for some of the other dominoes to drop. That you've got Nico Ladero coming in. Obviously he plays the position, but he's we'll call him an elder statesman. So at his age, what do you how
he's getting
how
the senior citizen discount for sure.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
And so how many minutes does he give you? I mean, that's kind of what we're all looking to is just see what what you can get out of him. Does he play just big games? I mean, it's obviously brutal here in the summers.
So what's your answer to that question personally? Like, what do you think? Because I think me and Jorge are a little bit split on that question. I think he thinks Nico's going to be a big part, and I think he's too old and he's washed and he's not going to do much. So what's your opinion?
Well, I think he's kind of a stopgap. I mean, for me, I was never of the opinion that we were going to go out and sign, the right fit in terms of a Cam, like just in the season. I think we might have an eye towards Europe, and it might be a summer signing. So for me, I think he probably plays a lot early, and then kind of transitions a little bit into that super sub role towards the second half of the season. That's kind of where I think he'll give you the big games. Obviously, we've got some games versus in the CCC, whatever the CONCACAF, whatever it
Champions
is now.
Cup.
It changes it.
Champions Cup.
Yeah. So I think
Is that
early
what it is
on,
this year?
yeah, early on, I think he'll give you a lot, and then I think as the season goes on, kind of transition to a little bit more of a super sub and just playing selective games. Obviously, he'll be featuring a lot of the games versus the Flamingos and all that stuff. Some of the Atlanta games and everything as well. So,
Do you think it'll be super effective time that he gets here, or do you think it'll be just kind of average quality? Like, what do you think the level of Nico is at this point with the minutes that he can play?
yeah, I mean, he's coming in. He's stepping into the role of Pereira. So he
Right.
gave you assists. He didn't necessarily give you goals. He's probably a little more attack minded. So from that standpoint, it's a higher bar, I think.
In theory.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we saw Pereira in however many years he hit one banger. Obviously he was really good at those line breaking passes. But so if he could give you some of that, I mean, I don't think any of us were really under the impression that Nico's going to step in and be the Nico of 4 years ago. So I think but he can be a step up from where Pereira was, just in terms of shots and then just kind of creating some goal opportunities. Then I think that he'll be a good savvy veteran signing, especially in the free agent market.
So if I have to put you on the spot, what do you think his average is? L15, L40, whatever, at Orlando for the whole season? What do you think his average score is?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're probably 55-ish. I mean, the first half of the season, I'd say that, and then it probably tapers off as the season goes on, as he gets more sub appearances. So maybe from that standpoint, he's going to be around 45 to 50. What do you think? What do you guys think?
I had a feeling this was going to happen, because I've been very anti, like, I haven't wanted to go pick up a Ladero. I was like, whatever, I'll pick up his Orlando card, obviously, because I'm needed for the collection. But I was like I know, I agree with you that especially at the beginning, like, he's going to be the starter. He's going to be the 10. Like you said, he slots in almost like for like with Pereira, but more decisive, dangerous. He's going to be, they can make the passes. He can hit them in, but I feel, and like Pereira, like, he had it. You would see a lot of the times, you'd see the pass there, you'd see the run, you see that the idea was there, but he was too slow to pick up his head and see it, or he'd have to take one too many touches to settle the ball. And by then, like, the gap was closed. So I think that Nico, with his experience, being a little bit better, might be able to capitalize on that. And who knows, maybe that does change the trajectory of this team, where, it wasn't that we necessarily played bad a lot of the times. It's just, we just couldn't put the ball in the back of the net. And Nico definitely changes that. And now, not even that, but Nico being the player that he is and the pedigree that he has, teams almost, it takes some focus away from Facu, because they know they can't just let Nico just sit unmarked, right? Like, it's just one more person you can't just leave there, because he's goal dangerous. Where maybe they stepped off Pereira a little bit because they knew he wasn't that much of a threat. So
yeah, I think that's right. I mean, you look at the sort of the Leagues Cup. I think you kind of picked up on what I think his role is, which is just kind of relieve some of the pressures off of Torres, and then maybe find if they'll get a good way for Ojeda to kind of work into the mix as well. Some of those bigger games, I think if you were to go and look at actually what Facundo did, especially last year, he kind of feasted at least through the Leagues Cup. So the first part of the season, he kind of feasted on lower competition. There was a lot of goals versus Red Bulls versus Toronto, and then obviously he hit a stride after Leagues Cup. But then the big game, obviously, versus Pembroke Pines, it's just a little harder for them. So, and that's where we really need to get to, just in terms of, we need our designated players to be the best player on the field and show up in some of those big games. So, You know,
Yeah,
I think Facundo
100%.
did that after Leagues Cup, you know, especially as we got towards the, you know, the later on stages of the season and all that. So if it's another body that some of the bigger teams need to mark, then I think that's what the role that he has to play.
Oh yeah, and so here's another thing that I want to bring up to you because we're kind of rolling, and we have the Facundo thing, right? But then we look on the other side where we officially signed Angulo, right? We had the loan towards the summer, we extended it to the end of the season, and we finally got the deal done. Angulo's coming back. Well, we have a DP Ojeda who is sitting on the bench. I know you have your own personal feelings about Angulo, but right now, who's going to be on the other side? Is it going to be Angulo, or is it going to, or do you think Ojeda gets maybe another shot at redemption here? Because he is a DP. We're paying him.
Yeah, I mean that's what Pereira's getting. He's got to earn his money this year, so he's got to figure out a way to get Ojeda and Torres on the field. I think the thing that Angulo gives you is he doesn't have to have the ball at his feet, right? He's good at stretching, getting in behind defenses, you know, and then he kind of turns into you know, mush when he gets in the final third. So he's got to figure out to, so to be a little bit more clinical, a little bit more decisive, and be able to kind of put some of those balls in the back of the net or kind of create some opportunities for some of those guys when he does get forward. So for me, the thing that Ojeda gives you is he's versatile, right? So you brought him up last year. He's obviously really effective coming off the bench. He's just, in terms of like per minutes, he's probably one of the most productive players in the league. But the thing that if you put him next to Torres, and especially if you put him next to Nico now, they all seem to want the ball. And that was always the thing with Ramiro Enrique as well. So you have to have those guys. And that's where I think, obviously, Pereira is, favors Angulo just from the standpoint he doesn't absolutely have to have the ball at his feet, and he's got the Colombian connection too. He's been trying to get Pereira's trying to get not Pareja is trying to get Angulo some looks for the Colombian national team. So I still think that Angulo will feature quite a lot.
What about you, Chris? Because I know we've exchanged words. Anytime he misses a sitter, I know within seconds Chris is going, so Angulo, yo. And how about Angulo?
I don't even watch Orlando City, and I know when he misses sitters. Like, he's missed so many freaking sitters. It's insane. And the only reason I know that is because I have him on one of my teams as well. Yeah, I think it's a good point. That's something that Atlanta kind of ran into. Like, everybody needed the ball at their feet, and there's only one ball to go around, and you need that like different style of player that can kind of get in behind and do some different things. And that's why I think they got rid of like Barco and guys like that to kind of make the space for that Almada needs to be his best self. And I think Orlando absolutely has to do the same thing, especially with Facundo signing a long-term deal. I think you got to feature him. And so if that means, getting rid of somebody else and opening up a DP spot, great. But short term, obviously you got to figure it out, but long term, it would make sense to kind of get rid of him, right? Like, get rid of, I forget the other guy's name. Sorry. I'm not looking at the depth chart.
Ojeda?
Ojeda. Yeah. Ojeda. It would make sense to get rid of Ojeda, right?
Well, I think they're still looking for the kind of the post Facundo, when he does go to Europe, because it's always been a when and not an if, right?
Yeah.
So and Ojeda is kind of like the like for like in terms of when Facundo leaves to go somewhere else, and you just got this big contract extension, but I think part of that is now he's got an actual release clause in his new contract. So it doesn't actually preclude him from actually going over to
Right.
somewhere in Europe.
Do you know what the release clause is by chance, or is that public?
I think Capology had it at like 30 million or something like that, but I'm not quite sure if that was the last one or this one may be slightly different. They keep modifying. He's been here for like 3 years. He's got like 7 contracts, and
Yeah, well, that's good though.
Yeah. He's a young kid. He just had a baby. Disney World. Like, come on, dude. Dude, he's having the time of his life. But so I love this team. This team is great. Silver wise, this team's a little questionable sometimes because last year I did the experiment where I ran Orlando City stack the entire year in Champ America. Oh boy, it did
How
not
much
go
did you
well.
win?
I won big versus the LA Galaxy. I think that's so we're like 1 for what, 32, 34, something like
Yeah,
that.
basically, it was like I think with Philly away, it was like a perfect game where like I kind of just ended up winning because it was so much rotation that it kind of worked in my favor. But it was pretty bad. But we're gonna do this little thing where we're gonna kind of go through position by position real quick, look at these cards, see if there's anybody that you recommend to pick up, maybe build a little stack, see where you go. Goalkeepers, it's pretty chalked in, right? It's Pedro all the way.
Yeah.
But Pedro is going to be leaving for international duty,
I mean,
which
look
is
at
covered
that
by Sorare, though,
L15.
right?
Look at that L15, baby.
Yeah, that sucks. This is. Do you think, and like this might be like a trading question, maybe for Chris? Like, is it even worth trying to pick up a Mason for like some flip in the international break with his L15 so high? Like, it's
How
rough.
soon is the international break? Because like, will that game fall off? Is the question. You know, like, will that not be within the last 15? Oh no, it was like 4 games ago. Yeah,
yeah,
it's not going to fall off.
It's
I don't know. It's still worth having a starting goalkeeper for however long it is. It's like a month, you know,
is it that long, really?
for
Is
Copa.
international break that long? Yeah.
For Copa, I mean, Copa's like a month, so I mean, at least 3 weeks for like the group stage. So I mean, you're talking about probably getting 4 or 5 games potentially out of. I don't know the exact schedule, but I mean, at that price, 4 or 5 games for a starting goalkeeper, got to think about it. You know, it's worth a shout.
Mike, are we scooping?
I think the thing to point out too, because I was getting a couple people hit me up on Discord asking about Otero, whether he was going to displace Mason. I don't think that's the case. I think Mason's a pretty solid number 2, and you can. I don't know if I necessarily see Mason, at any point really going and being a starter. Do you?
That was my question. I think it's more dangerous that Mason goes somewhere else and is to start. Like he gets traded somewhere.
I mean, he's been around long enough. He's quality. Like he's not a bad keeper. I mean, he's susceptible to mistakes. The goals that he does let in, they're bad. But for the most part, he's pretty good. So like I could definitely see him going to I don't know. But does he start in the MLS? Have you seen all the goalkeepers that we're starting to bring into the league? Berkey, Lloris, like it's starting to get a little spicy in the goalkeeper. And I think the standard, and we talked about it before, going back and talking about Dane St. Clair, where it's like, the quality of keeper, isn't just a normal, hey, let's bring up the next guy from the academy up and then he'll be fine. It's a little bit more than that. So
I don't know. Is it worth talking about a backup goalkeeper for this long? That's
no, it's not. Moving on. Defenders. Robin Janssen, Rafael Santos. Is it end there? Because
well, I mean, I think you're going to have Dagger Dan playing on the right, which, as someone who played his midfield card as a defender last year, was great when he got decisives, and that was it.
Oh yeah, no, his defender stats are way better than his midfield stats, and it sucks.
So, assuming new cards get released and you start seeing some defender cards, I think that would be attractive for me. I know I'll be looking to pick up one of those. But I guess the question becomes, though, just in terms of center back. I mean, so the 2 big signings that I think all the Orlando City fans were expecting would be, a designated player, center attacking mid. So Nico for me is kind of the stopgap. But then the other big piece is they send Antonio Carlos back home to Brazil, and then there's been rumors about other center backs. So obviously, the people that they've been rumored to be in on don't necessarily have any cards. But what do you get out of Rodrigo Schlegel? He's got a red card suspension for the very first game from
Imagine
the playoffs. Yeah. I was drinking a lot of brown liquor and tweeting about him after the playoff game. So.
Oh man, I remember that. Yeah. Well, it's funny because like I missed all of it, right? Because it was like upsetting, so I wasn't on the internet. I woke up the next morning. I was like, "What did Mike do?" Like he like literally got the whole fan base to turn on him. I don't know what he ended up doing, but like that's the thing, Chris. Is to you because Schlegel was our starting center back. Is he a starting center back in this league? like obviously Orlando City, they've shown intention. There were some rumors for some guy from like Norway or something like that for like some big spend.
From
So
Viking
like,
FC.
yeah, another Viking. We
Bring
love our
in the
Vikings.
Vikings.
Hell
I
yeah.
will say this. Now, if shithousing were an actual Sorare stat, then he would be like primo, top of the charts and everything. So
He is a great shithouser. I will 100% give you that.
Okay, all I'm saying,
I don't know. I kind of think he could be. He could be a starter. Like I've always viewed Orlando as having 3 starting center backs, and like Schlegel always is like on the field. Like I don't view him as the backup center back. So I mean, I could see that being the case for sure. My question with the defenders is your guy Mikey Halliday. Like, where does he fit into this picture? Because he's a US U20 guy, you know, like.
So
Why
we
isn't he playing?
shipped. So Luca Petrasso, he went on loan to like 3rd division Spain or something like that.
yeah, Serie
So
C in Italy. Yeah.
oh yeah, so Italy. So like it's something like that. So we still have no depth. We have no backup left back. We still have Kyle Smith on this roster. Dagger Dan seems to be our new right back, who is a midfielder.
I could still see Halliday making a run at right back. I mean, part of his issue was when he went out last year, he came back and he had kind of picked up some muscular issues, something like that. And he was pretty productive early on in the season when he was
good.
Yeah, he was really good. I remember.
Dude,
I had him from the US U20 team.
The Tigres game. Like, dude, he went down to Mexico and played like a grown man.
Yeah.
Like he went down there and really hung with the big boys. So like it was cool. And we were like, oh yeah, this is Mikey's season. Then he got hurt. And then here comes attacking midfield Dagger Dan to take that spot from him. I don't know, man. I love Mikey. Like everybody was saying, I rate Mikey highly, Halliday highly. But yeah, I think it's just a wait and see. Because I think do you agree, Mike, that it's pretty much Daggers to lose at this point right now? Especially
I think it definitely starts that way. I mean, they give you different things. I mean, Halliday is a little bit more kind of the overlapping, where I think Dagger Dan is kind of like the, inverted fullback. He likes to come into the midfield because that's where he's comfortable. But he can kind of do some of those things. So I think just in terms of where the season starts, I think it's Dagger Dan's to start, and then we will see Halliday. I mean, to be fair, I think it's going to be a little bit of a rotational. It may be a position to kind of avoid altogether just because you don't really know.
Can we also admit that Dagger Dan has one of the best names that I've ever heard of? And I honestly thought it was a nickname that people were just calling him.
Nope.
I look on Sora and that's his actual fucking name. Like, what a fucking guy. Like, come on. Dagger Dan.
Thor Hallison, dude. Our Icelandic.
Bro. I would have signed him just for the name. I don't care how good a player he is.
Yeah.
I want a Dagger Dan on my team.
Yeah.
Like Mike Baston says, Schlegel is totally Sergio Ramos level shithousery, and it's great. And I don't care if we spend 10 million on a center back, but when we play Miami, if I don't get Schlegel versus Luis Suarez, I'm just upset. Because if there's anything I need, I just need Schlegel versus Luis Suarez in my life. And you better give it to me. Oscar Pereira, if you're listening, I need it in my life. Real quick,
built for CONCACAF. That's
I could see like the Eastern Conference Final, and they're like playing Messi, and he like tries to break Messi's arm or something, like Ramos did to Mo Salah in the Champions League final. Like I could 100% see that going down.
I just can't wait for the game. I just want to see Felipe and Caesar and everyone just all mic'd up for some of those games. If MLS doesn't do some sort of mic'd up version for those games, and they're missing out.
100%.
Real quick, 2 things before we move on to midfielders. One, it's a travesty that MLS booked Miami versus Orlando in Miami on a Wednesday. Like, what the hell are you doing? That should be on the weekend primetime game. Like, you're dumb. Second of all, if you had to pick one defender to play from this Orlando City team right now, who would it be? To play in SO5.
I'd say you got to be Santos. I mean, he's locked down on that left side. He gets forward. He'll pump in crosses. He'll get the decisives, and then we didn't always get clean sheets last year,
right?
But we got a fair bit of them. Not as many as in previous years, but I think he's just kind of the one I'd play. And then Janssen, the scores, if you look from 2-3 years ago, they're down. Partially because of just because of the way that some of the I think I caught an interview at one point. He was just saying that a lot of the midfields where he would normally kind of dribble into and have a lot more progressive play would just kind of push him out wide. So, so he didn't get quite as many opportunities as he did the previous years. Plus,
those like line
the
breaking
age
passes
factor.
and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's great at pinging those big balls over the top. I mean, and that's really what makes him effective. But just in terms of, the scoring matrix doesn't necessarily love those because it's obviously a low percentage pass when you're just trying to ping it 55 yards.
Yeah. And you get
You agree,
penalized
Chris?
so heavily for that when you lose possession as a defender. It's like anything like that. That's why a lot of times fullbacks end up being super feast or famine. Like Julian Gressel's a great example. Like if he connects 2 or 3 of those passes, then he's going to have a monster day with like a bunch of attempted assists and all that fun stuff. But if he doesn't, he's going to have like a minus 25 AA and it's going to look terrible. I do kind of think, so this is Santos's chart. And I would tend to go with like, I feel like the safer option is Janssen. But I feel like Santos probably has more upside with the decisive, threat. So
He's a mean cross.
I'm kind of leaning the more upside play, so I would probably go Santos too. But honestly, if you're trying to play like a cap mode, it's maybe Janssen.
Yeah, so I mean, and when we're talking, because I don't necessarily play a lot of full Orlando City stacks either, but when I do play, I have a couple of the supers that I have a Janssen and then I have a Gillespie. So I'll do like the mini stack, and I've got a couple other Orlando City players that I might throw in there, but I kind of limit it to 3, and then I'll have a couple, like a pair from some other team, is how I normally will.
That's a good point. If you're gonna stack it with the goalkeeper, I feel like you want to go with Janssen because he's gonna have more, like he'll have more value in a shutout. Like you pretty much need a shutout at that point. So like he'll have more value in a shutout, whereas on his own, maybe Santos has more upside. If that makes sense.
I can see that. I like it. Midfielders, all right. We got Cartagena back, all right, for 2 years. All right. We got our 2 double pivot in the back. I assume it's going to stay the same. There are a lot of midfielders to choose from in this team. We have Facundo Torres, obviously 100% lock. I think we could all agree.
Yes.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Which I don't know about you guys, but me, I typically always play 2 midfielders. I feel like that's the way most people play.
Especially
if you did
in this league. Yeah.
If you did have to choose another one, I mean, Cartagena and Caesar are both very crucial in the midfield. Both aren't really, attacking dangers too much. They do have them in them. They are known to do so. Wilder kind of had a rough end of the season after Leagues Cup. He looks really rough.
Red cards in there.
Yeah. Who would you go with here? Are you a Caesar? Are you Team Caesar or Team Cartagena?
I've always enjoyed Caesar, so I would say him, just because I think he's and more than anything, it's probably just like the U22 label. He covers a lot of ground. I think I was looking at some of his actual stats, and I don't think really either of them get a whole ton of decisives, but when they do, they can clean up for sure. But it's just kind of a low percentage play.
Oh, and that's the best part with Caesar too, because like you're saying, when he does hit him, like he hits him, and because he has the AA, it's already there. So if he can bang a decisive, and you almost started to see it, and like you saw it a little bit earlier in the beginning, but Caesar almost plays that Urso role where he makes that late run in behind, sneaks in behind everybody else, and he just smacks it. And a lot of the times it's not far off, or he's hit the post, or even Cartagena, same thing. Had a couple bangers with really, really good goalkeeper saves where it's like they want it and they're interested in it. But because I've had people in my DMs too that always ask me, they're like, hey, who should I go with? Who should I pick up? I think Cartagena is better for cap modes, simply because he does have those ups and downs more, where Caesar's a little bit more consistent. Chris, how are you feeling on this?
I'm team give me someone from another team, because I don't think Facundo needs to be paired with anybody other than Duncan McGuire potentially. But yeah, I'm not starting either one.
To that point, I looked this up. So the guy that Facundo actually paired well with was Ercan Kar, who is now in Turkey.
Right. That makes sense, because he's on the end of those crosses.
Yeah, so if you look at his stats last year, he assisted 5 different players. The biggest one was Kara, and they had 12 different players actually assist Facundo, which is why it doesn't make any sense to stack with Facundo in there, because
Right.
unless something changes, which it could. I mean, I think if he does start carrying the ball and develops a little bit more chemistry with Duncan, I did that stack where I had Facundo and I had Duncan, and the results weren't great last year. So, hopefully they develop a little bit more chemistry in the off season, but there's just too much variability involved with actually trying to stack Facundo.
So Sorare Data has this beautiful thing on stacks, right? The interesting one here is Dagger Dan is actually the highest percentage of common over 60 games. So maybe an interesting sneaky stack there.
That was him and Facundo ended up kind of linking up a lot towards the end of the season, didn't they? Now looking back at it, yeah. Huh.
Yeah, I mean, you get Dagger Dan kind of running up on that right side. I mean, the thing about it is when you're looking at our midfield, everyone makes a lot of, well, do you play Facundo, this left wing, left attacking mid, or whatever? They interchange so much that and they have freedom to kind of float around the field that you don't even really know where they're going to pop up. So a lot of times you would actually see them kind of swap sides. So Ojeda and or Angulo and Facundo would just kind of change sides as the game went on, and then you'd end up having Dagger Dan just kind of running up in the same area, just trying to get these little combination play, get in and spring something in the box and all that. So it's just to that point, I think some of those defenders, especially when you get the ball up in the opponent's third, and then they're just looking to try and some combinations to get through there. Dagger Dan could be the guy.
So is Dagger Dan the sneaky early season buy for next season? Especially if Sorare is going to continue doing this, you need 1 or 2 new season cards for, to play in this cash competition. Is Dagger Dan kind of a sneaky little buy there early?
He's my buy. I mean, I'm buying his defender card, so.
Is he too risky though with Holiday? The chance of him losing his job?
I don't think so. I mean, he's so versatile that they'll put him somewhere else.
He would have to get hurt probably for it to really be.
Because I mean, if you really look at it, he is a little bit more attacking oriented, and I think that's it was a little bit of a departure to have him play back out and playing defender. I mean, he had to really learn how not to keep players on sides and things like it, run the offside trap. So once he settled into that, then that's when you saw him really get a lot more playing time and all that.
So say Mikey Holiday has a ridiculous preseason, can't put him on the bench. We want to move Dagger Dan somewhere else. Who gets benched? Because you guys got so many midfielders and they're all locked. Where else is he gonna go?
Because Gaston Gonzalez is still floating up there too.
Yeah,
Ramiro plays on the wing.
Gaston, another year removed from that ACL injury. I mean, he could, if he's fit, then maybe he displaces Angulo. But yeah, I mean, to that point, if Mikey is pushing Dagger Dan, then I think Dagger Dan goes to the bench. I don't think he displaces anyone in the midfield.
Oh.
Either way, that's a really good problem to have. If you have 2 young kids just literally just fighting day in and day out for that right back position, is only going to make it that much better. And they've both proven that they could produce on that side, and it's going to be great. Oh yeah. It's exciting. All right. This is going to be about as short as a conversation as we get. America runs on Duncan, baby.
Yeah.
My question is he staying?
Until the Olympics?
Have we is he officially staying?
Yeah, I mean,
we don't know.
I think it's a very low percentage that he actually leaves.
Do you think that re-signing Facundo almost solidifies that? Hey, it almost confirms that, hey, we're keeping this team together. We're just going to upgrade some pieces and make another push because this team looked incredibly dangerous going into the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, for me, yeah, I mean, I think that's accurate. The thing about Duncan in particular is, you lose him for the Olympics, and you can always see that Ramiro Enrique was the one that You know, he could play out wide on the wing, or he'll play up top. So I would expect, you know, him to kind of eat into some of Duncan's minutes here or there. But just in terms of just an out and out, who's the starting striker on day one versus, well, I guess we're doing this versus Cavalry for the CONCACAF Championship. It's going to be Duncan. There's no doubt about it.
Is he worth playing in Sorare?
We talking Duncan? We talking Ramiro?
Duncan.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he hasn't shown the multi-goal game, but you know,
see, this is my concern. He doesn't do any AA at all, right? And
no one in MLS does.
If he gets a goal, great. He's a 60, but like 60s don't win rewards. You got to have like 80s, 90s, 100s.
It requires service,
so like,
there's no doubt.
Potentially a cap for sure, but like in an open competition, does he have like a ceiling where he's not gonna score 80 points in a game?
I think he does. I don't think it's there yet, but I think he does, because you see him do a lot of the little things, and he has to work on his hold-up play and a lot of turnovers here and there. And my thing is, like, he just needs to get stronger. Like, he does barrel through a lot of people, but a lot of the times, like, he struggles to like really play off a defender sometimes. Like,
particularly bigger defenders,
on like bigger defenders.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where it might come. And this year, like I'm saying, even whether it's Nico or a new like young DP10, one more like attacking, like dangerous like piece in there to take a little bit of the pressure off of Duncan too. I think it's just gonna like incredible. You're gonna have Angulo running that way. You're gonna have Facundo doing some like cool stuff over here. You're gonna have Duncan like literally sprinting through somebody, and then Nico's gonna be like, "Oh, what's up? Who wants it?"
Yeah. Last question on Duncan for both of you guys. I want to hear both of your answers. How many goals does he score this year?
How many did he score this year?
I'd say 12.
15 last year.
I'd say 12 because I think Ramiro is going to pick up some of his, eat into some of his time. That's my guess.
I mean, that's a good shout.
23 starts and 13 off the bench. He had 15 goals.
I say he'll go over 10. How much more, I don't know, because if he is going to leave for the Olympics, we have all this other stuff too. Even with that, there's going to be training camps. There's going to be wanting to share those minutes with Ramiro, trying to get him like in the system, get him like match fit. It might not be as smooth sailing for Duncan this year as it was in previous years. Yeah, you might be onto something there.
So no AA and 10 to 12 goals for an entire season.
For the future. All right. Because he's young, all right? And he's going to be great for the rest of forever because Orlando City is massive. Duh.
Actually, that's a good last question to end on. Though the team overall, right? Where do they finish in the league? How far do they get in the playoffs?
I think so much of that depends on whether they, center back. I'm not worried about finding a center back, but what do you do with that center attacking mid? If it takes until the summer, then I think they regress up slightly. Maybe I'd still give them a home playoff game. So, but probably in that 3-4 spot. It's just so hard to kind of predict, particularly the East this year. You got Atlanta's going to be good. You got Miami's going to be good. You got we'll be good again. Yeah, Columbus is still there, and
Philly.
Kyle Wagner's back.
Just signed Kai, yeah. So, I just hope the East just continues to beat up on the West like it did last year. So,
Chris, where are they finishing?
I don't know. We just talked about my concern with this team, right? Like, I think they're maybe a little bit better than they were last year, but I also don't know if that's good enough to keep the number 2 spot, if that makes sense. Like, I think other teams are getting better faster, and even like potentially what happens, like what if Toronto catches fire? Like John Herdman gets Insigne going. Like, I mean, I don't know. I think Orlando's more complete than Toronto, but like I've seen weirder things. Like I've seen weirder turnarounds, and this league is all about, like, it does not matter where you finished last year. It's like a brand new season every single year, and teams that finish first can miss the playoffs. Like Austin last year finished second, missed the playoffs by a lot. It wasn't really even that close. So I don't think they're Austin or anything like that, but I do think there's nowhere to go but down, right? Like they were second last year. I don't think they're the best team in the East. So like they almost have to go down. I think they're fighting for home playoff. I think they're more the 4-5 spot for me. But I think it'll be a better team talent wise, if that makes sense.
We had a lot of results go our way this year,
Right? That
and
too.
so
we got away with a few.
Yeah, I think luck was definitely on our side. So I think from that standpoint, that's where I'm thinking, if you come out, you hit a home run with the number 10 spot, and then you get an absolute game changer. It steps in day one. Then I think it's completely realistic that they get a number 1, number 2 seed. But for the most part, the way that I'm kind of expecting it to go, where they don't necessarily get somebody until maybe into the season or even into the summer, that's where I see a little bit of regression. So we'll see.
It'll be an interesting one for sure.
No, I definitely think that's right. I think you both hit it on the nail. Where, look, we did get away with some, and where I do think it'll be prettier this year because we really scraped and fought for some of those. That this team will be better, but like everybody said, the East is getting better. Atlanta, Miami, Columbus. I'm starting to get a little worried about Cincinnati. They shipped off a lot, and they haven't really brought much back.
Yeah, I don't.
But they got a great defense, though.
Is Corey Baird going to get it done there?
Oh, no. Hell yeah. Corey Baird season. Let's go.
Don't pump them till I buy a rare one.
It's going to be old school DC with like Lucho Acosta and nothing else on the field. Just wait.
I'm going to sit there and watch.
Speaking of DC, does Orlando get more than 1 point against DC this year?
All right, dude, this episode has been fantastic. All right, Chris has always been here. Mike, thank you so much for coming on. We'll have you on again. Guys, anybody who is here in the chat, thanks for hanging out. Anybody who listens to it after it, we are going to be bringing you every MLS team from the league one by one. Next week might have St. Louis and Philly. I don't know. Let us know, though. These are for you as much as they are for us. Let us know what you want to see, how we can make these better, and we'll go from there. And don't forget, Mike, let them know.
Orlando City is massive.
There it is. New